Welcome, everybody. Thank you, as I said, for giving us your time this evening. My name is Jo. I'm one of the directors with Ten2Two. We are a part-time and flexible work specialist recruitment consultancy. Been around for nearly 20 years now, which is um, and hopefully some of you know a bit about us. So I won't need to go on in too much detail, but we do run a series of webinars throughout the year to try and support candidates in their job search, right from things like tonight's session, so making sure that you're in the right mindset, all the way through to interview skills, and thinking about your joining kind of strategy and those first 60 days. So please do feel free to dig around on the website if there's anything else that you're interested in, or keep your eye on your inbox for other events that we might run. So back to this evening, we have the pleasure of being joined by Debbie. Debbie has been a good friend of Ten2Two for a long time now, and we're always really pleased to have her come back and present for us. Tonight, she's going to take you through get in the right mindset for your job search. As I'm sure a lot of you are feeling, it is a tough market out there at the moment, and we were just having a conversation about people kind of burning out quite quickly with their job search. So hopefully tonight's webinar will take you through some really useful strategies, some tips, some ideas of how to make sure that your job search is working for you. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We will be sending out a recording of the webinar tomorrow, so you can scribble notes down, but you really don't need to, because you will be able to watch it again at your leisure. We do have a Q&A open this evening, but the chat is not open. So if you do want to ask anything, please do pop it in the Q&A. The reason that we do this is just some people ask quite personal questions, so we want to be able to give people some privacy to be able to ask those questions. We will try and have some time for questions at the end. Often there's a very large amount of content to get through, and we do sometimes run over a bit. If that's the case, we will come back to your questions as best we can, either in a Q&A document, or if there is something specific that you want to ask either myself or Debbie, then you will be able to get in touch with us. Our contact details will be at the end, or we will try and reach out if you've left a question. I will be in the background answering questions, tapping away. So if I make funny faces on the screen, please don't think that I'm making funny faces at you. It's just that I'm trying to answer a very deep and meaningful question. And hopefully, as I said, you'll enjoy this evening. So without me rattling on anymore, I will hand you over to Debbie.
Thank you, Jo. And I will get Jo to give me some feedback on some of the things as we go through. So this is interactive, so please do engage and get involved. So as Jo said, I'm a coach and a trainer, and I work with people who are in career transition, and also people who are within roles and established as kind of leaders within roles, and helping and supporting them within that kind of realm, whether that's challenges of team dynamics, delegation, whatever it is. So let's crack on with getting the right mindset for job search. So I'd like you first of all to drop into the Q&A for me how you would finish this sentence in terms of how you're feeling about the job search journey. So the job search journey is, and I'm going to get Jo to have a look at that and read out some of the answers for me. Oh, you're on mute, Jo.
Love tech. So everybody, there we go. I was about to say we're being a bit slow to warm up, but everybody's just dived in. So daunting, roller coaster, exhausting, intimidating, challenging. Roller coasters coming up again and again. It's quite tough, hard. There's not very many positive words coming through here, Debbie.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Jo. And I think, in itself, the message there is that, you're not alone in how you're feeling. So, please kind of take that. It can feel really lonely when you're at home sitting in front of your computer searching for jobs. So, recognize that you aren't alone in how you're feeling. I'm going to come back to these words in a moment. But something that I wanted to show you was the Kubler-Ross model, which has been adapted in relation to kind of the job search process as well. So you might have seen this before. It's a kind of a change model. So basically, the kind of start of it. So if you're thinking, for example, in terms of redundancy, um, the start of it is this kind of state of denial. And so it's this kind of, not really accepting what's going on. This can't be happening to me, burying your head in the sand, hoping that it'll all kind of blow over. And then moving into a kind of a state of shock. You might then move down into anger, and that can be anger towards your employer, particularly if the redundancy isn't handled very well, or it might be anger towards other people around you, and even people that you care about. It might come out in that way. And you're thinking about the kind of the impact that it's going to have on you and your life, and the friends and relationships that you've built in the workplace. You might then move into this stage of bargaining. So, questioning, could I have done anything differently? You might try and kind of put off the change. You might try and kind of compromise and discuss with your employer and negotiate to try and stay. But, we know that if it's a redundancy process, then it's about the role, not the individual. And there's often no real wriggle room on it, but you might go into this stage of bargaining. You might then move into a depression. So you might feel a real sense of despair and a sense of grief about, the identity that you had, the kind of the role that you had, and what that gave you, and now kind of losing that, and this kind of sense of sadness and loss. You then move into the kind of state of acceptance. And that's where there's this kind of understanding and then acceptance. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're happy, but that you accept the situation and you're ready to take action. So when you're looking at this kind of curve going up and down here, um, you might move through this really quickly and you might kind of skip some of those steps, or you might move through this more slowly, or move backwards and forwards between certain steps. And so this is your kind of emotional state, and this is the time. Um, but I think it's quite important to kind of recognize that that's a process that people go through when there's a change in their lives. And depending on how well that change has been dealt with by the organization that you're working for, and the impact that it has on your life, plus, how you've been experienced similar changes in the past, all of those things can have a real impact on you. So I think first of all, it's about kind of having a bit of self-compassion and recognizing that those different stages that you go through are part of the process, part of moving towards acceptance and being able to move forward. And so sometimes people can feel really, in a real kind of state of shock and sort of depression, and struggle to kind of move forward into the next bit. Um, and it's recognizing that these are all different elements of the change process. Um, so I, I mentioned at the start we were talking about mindset. So what is mindset? So mindset is a set of beliefs that shape how you make sense of the world and yourself. And so your mindset influences how you think, feel, and behave in any given situation. And you all gave me some words for how you felt about the job search journey. Um, and our beliefs are actually really shaped by the words that we use to describe how we feel. So somebody mentioned an emotional roller coaster. And so even when you mention that, you can kind of imagine the highs and the lows. And that then kind of is this continuous feedback loop, kind of building on that belief that it's going to be this absolute nightmare of highs and lows. Um, so a starting point is to kind of think about some of the words that you're using, because that gives you an insight into what's going on in your mind and how might you be able to help your mindset to be more positive. So for example, sometimes people say, I'm going around in circles, just not getting anywhere with a job search, just going around in circles. And that as a metaphor can actually help you to understand, okay, well, what could you be doing differently? So if you're going around in circles, it's that, okay, take a step back. What is it that you're doing? What could you do differently rather than continuing to take the same action? And I was mentioning to Joe earlier, I do some support for people whose roles have been made redundant, and lots of them are really struggling with direct application for roles at the moment. Um, but the confidence to go down the route of networking can sometimes feel like quite a big leap from their comfort zone, but they keep doing the same thing. They keep just applying direct for roles, or they keep, applying direct for roles, but not adapting and tailoring their CV for that particular role that they're applying for, and they keep getting knocked out. So it's kind of stopping and looking and going, okay, let's not just keep doing the same thing. What is it that I could do differently? How can I stop going around in circles, and see what those patterns of behavior are? And then thinking about, what's keeping you in that loop. So if actually it's that's the comfort zone for you, of applying direct rather than having to do the networking, is there another way of you doing networking that's more comfortable? So it doesn't have to be going to a kind of a big conference. It could be reaching out to people that you already know, that you've already worked with, and then meeting them for a coffee, asking them, is there anybody else that you think it's worth me connecting with? And getting them to do that connection for you, if they're happy to. So you've got a kind of a warm lead, and doing kind of one-to-one conversations rather than having to go and have, conversations with lots of people at a conference or something. So trying to think, what is it that you could do differently from what you're doing currently? Another thing that people say is, I feel like I'm hitting a brick wall. Um, and again, how can you create doors in your wall? Are there any kind of tools that might support you to doing that? Are there other people that might be able to help you? And trying to see it as, rather than the wall being the obstacle, see it as a problem that needs to be solved. So kind of just shifting your mindset on it of, okay, so let's put a door in here. So how can we solve this problem? What's getting in the way? And what are some of the other options that I could look at to move me forward? People quite often talk about not knowing which direction to take, and particularly at the real start of the job search, where they might be looking at job boards, they see lots of different things, and they're flitting between one idea and the next. And so they don't actually apply for anything, because they can't decide, am I going to go for this kind of job or this kind of job? So then it's about thinking, how can I reduce the options down? Could I look at what are the kind of the key criteria for what I'm looking for? So thinking back over jobs that I've had in the past, when have I been at my happiest? What task was I doing? What kind of team was I working with? What kind of organization was it? What sector was it? What size of organization? What stage was the organization at in terms of kind of startup, established, whatever else? Trying to kind of get a list of different criteria that you can then rank, and then you can prioritize jobs against those things to be able to say, okay, pros and cons of applying for which one. Therefore, where should I put my time and energy? I mentioned the emotional roller coaster at the start, and a few of you have mentioned that. So, trying to kind of think, okay, so what's making it an emotional roller coaster? And part of that can be the fact that you see this role, you start to do all the research, you're doing all the right things, you learn about the company, you tailor your CV for the role, you put in the application, you might get through to interview, you're going up on this roller coaster, and then you don't hear anything for ages, and you start going down, and you start to doubt yourself, and then suddenly you get a call and you're back up again, and then you might get to a point where somebody else gets through, you don't get through to the final stage, and you're back down again. So trying to think about, are there ways of taking out these peaks and troughs? And part of that is about not just having one job that you're going for, trying to have a few different leads at any one time so that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket and all of your emotional kind of energy into one thing. So that if you do then, come down the dip, that you can go, okay, so what can I learn from that? And it's okay, I've got another opportunity that I'm looking for. Um, and then the other thing is about thinking about the fact that there are going to be ups and downs. Not every role is going to be the right role for you. And it's as much about whether it's the right role for you as it is about whether you're the right fit for the organization. But thinking about how can you reward yourself when you've got through each different stage. And if you're going to get a result and it might not be the result that you want, what can you do to pick yourself back up again? So really kind of thinking about your well-being and helping yourself to kind of keep moving forward. Okay, so choice. You don't have control over all the circumstances in your life, but you do have the power to choose how you view them. So I'm going to tell you a bit about my story. So this is my husband Mark and my daughter Chloe. And in this picture here, it was Father's Day. So my husband had cycled from London to Brighton, and Chloe and I was our first kind of trip out to stay in a hotel overnight, and we'd gone to see him at the finish line. And it was Father's Day, so she's wearing a t-shirt that says "Best Daddy in the World." Um, and we're really excited. At this point, she was 4 months old, and then a month later, he died, and he was 40 years old, and she was 5 months old. And I went through kind of a complete shock, complete denial. I felt angry, I felt cheated and depressed and overwhelmed. And the thoughts going through my head were, I can't believe he's gone. It's not fair. I had plans for the future. And why me? And what did I do to deserve this? And I can't do this. And as a result, I was having late nights. I didn't want to go to bed because if I went to bed, I woke up the next day and he wasn't there. And I didn't want to eat healthily because I thought there's no point. I stopped exercising and I stopped meeting up with other people. And I remember saying to somebody, I felt like I was in a long, dark tunnel with no light. And they said to me, how can you put some light in your tunnel? And so for me, that became about signing up to do a race for cancer research because he died from cancer very suddenly. And as part of that, I then needed to exercise. I then needed to eat healthily. And I also recognized that I needed to meet up with people and see people. Even if the voice in my head was, I can't believe he's gone, I needed to do that. And so I started to kind of put these things into my life. I made a really conscious choice about how do I want to feel? And therefore, what are the thoughts that I need to have to feel that way? And what are the actions that I need to take? So your thoughts affect your feelings, and your feelings affect your actions and your behavior. So if you think about this in terms of job search, I'd like you to answer now in the Q&A. How do you want to feel about your job search? So just put in some words about how do you want to feel about your job search?
Everybody's always stunned into silence a little bit after hearing your story, so we'll give them a couple of minutes. Okay, so motivated, confident, optimistic. Confident is being repeated again. Excited, progressing, new beginnings, energetic, Valued. Oh, that's a good one.
Mm. Brilliant. And how amazing are those words? And
Mm.
what a difference from the words that you used at the start. So it's really about thinking, holding on to those words and thinking, this is how I want to feel. And therefore, what thoughts do I need to remind myself of to create that feeling? And what actions do I need to take to help me to get there? Um, so beliefs. So we talked earlier about the fact that our words feed our beliefs, and it's this kind of continuous cycle. Um, so our brain doesn't really help us. So there's something called the ladder of inference, which means that what happens is our brain observes data and experience, and it selects from that um, data. Um, only specific bits of data it will select, and it will add meanings to that data, and then it will make assumptions based on those meanings, and draw conclusions, and adopt beliefs about the world. And then we take action based on our beliefs, and it goes back round the cycle. So if you're thinking about that from a job search perspective, the fact of the matter might be that you didn't get the job. You go for an interview, you didn't get the job. But your brain might start saying, oh, well, I noticed that that interviewer didn't nod and smile when I was talking. And that means that they think that I wasn't good enough or I wasn't experienced enough. And I assume that the other candidate must have been more experienced. And so, everybody else applying for these roles has got X years experience or X qualifications. So I don't believe that there's any point in me applying for this type of role. And so you stop applying for the roles. So your brain searches out for more data to back that up, and it keeps backing up those beliefs that we've got. And so it's about unpicking that. It's about trying to kind of go back through it. So if you didn't get selected at interview, go back through and think, so I've got this belief that maybe I'm not experienced enough. Is there any evidence that kind of says that that's why that decision was made? What happened in the interview? Really kind of delve through it. Is there any evidence that backs up the fact that only people who secure the role have got it because of this experience that they've got? So just trying to kind of be really analytical and kind of think, is there another scenario that might be at play here? Is there another case that might be the reasoning why I wasn't selected for the interview, wasn't selected for the role? So I'd like you to put into the Q&A. We were just talking about kind of not experienced enough, not qualified enough. Are there any beliefs that you've got? Are there any assumptions that you've got that are holding you back from your goal around job search? What assumptions are you making?
It is always quite difficult for people because it's normally something that we fear about ourselves. So as I said, one of the reasons we have that as a Q&A rather than a chat is so these are completely private. Nobody else can see your responses. Um, so there's a couple of people saying that they don't feel as though they're good enough. Career gaps is always a common
Mm.
concern. Um, age has come up a couple of times.
Mhm.
A few people saying that they've had knocks to their confidence. So not necessarily a belief, but a impact of the process so far.
Yeah.
Uh, People having been out of work for a while, not being good at interviews.
Mhm. Yeah. And so all of those. So if we start with the age one, there is an age bias in recruitment. I'm not going to lie and tell you that there's not. There is an age bias. There are things that you can do to try and minimize the age bias, so that you get to get through to interview, which is things like not putting dates on your CV, in terms of things like your education background. Um, but I think, if you're thinking that you're too old, it's trying to think about what does that age give you? What does that experience of your age give you, that's of benefit to an employer? And part of that, quite often, employers are looking for people who can adapt, people who are resilient. And if you've got experience, you've probably gone through quite a lot of change. You've probably had to be resilient and overcome changes, whether that's technology, restructures, whatever it is. So being able to communicate the strengths that that experience brings over somebody else who's maybe not had that kind of background of having gone through those things. So trying to think about it from what does it give you, and it's really about you being able to communicate that effectively. Again, in terms of the career gap, you didn't, have this kind of all of these skills and knowledge and experience, and then suddenly lose it all whilst you weren't working. You've built other skills and knowledge and experience during that time. So it may be that you've been caring for somebody, whether that's, children, elderly parents, whatever that is. What skills and experience have you developed in that time period that are useful in terms of the workplace. And those soft skills are really useful, particularly in a world where, technology is changing really fast. It's the soft skills that set you apart for in terms of the kind of things that could be done via technology versus things that can be done by humans. So again, it's trying to kind of pick apart those assumptions, and see the positives. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the well-being wheel. So if you've got a piece of paper handy, you can do this now. If not, you can watch back and do it then. But you draw a wheel, and on the wheel you have spokes from 0 to 10. Um, and within those different segments of the wheel, you have different elements. So you can either write them as words or you can draw them as pictures. But I'll go through them in a bit more detail. So this one here, reflection. So this is by Dan Siegel, and this is different things that help your mind to be at its best. So quite often we have all of these thoughts, particularly when we're at a point of feeling, we're not good enough, or our confidence is not. So there's all of these thoughts in our head, and actually just getting those thoughts out on paper helps to kind of calm all of that anxiety, and it's circulating around in your head the whole time. And it also, once you've got it all out on paper, you can then look at it and kind of go, okay, let's challenge some of those. Let's reframe some of those thoughts. How could I think about those differently? So kind of journaling or just, scribbling things down. Playtime, laughing. Kids are great at this. As we get older, we do a lot less of it. And laughing really does improve feelings of optimism, and reduce stress. So try and kind of find ways of having fun and making sure that you're building that into your day, so you're not just sat at a computer the whole time doing job search. Um, Good nutrition, everybody knows about the benefits of that. Exercise, and this doesn't have to be going to the gym, it can be just getting up from your desk and going and making yourself a cup of tea, or going for a walk around the garden. Or sometimes people do a kind of effectively a commute. So they go for a walk in the morning, they go for a walk in the afternoon, and it's effectively like the kind of commute, and being able to, clear your head of everything from the day. This one here is downtime. So I don't know about you, Joe, but as soon as I have a spare moment, I sit down and I start scrolling on my phone. So I'm terrible at this.
Yeah,
Um,
most of us are
yeah.
probably guilty of that. I don't think that anybody can lie and say they don't scroll.
So your brain, your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that does all of the kind of logical decision making, is really energy hungry, and it needs time to rest. And we don't give it time to rest. We don't just do nothing. Um, and that's something that it really needs, because you'll notice that when when you've been kind of sitting there all day working on something, it becomes harder to think more clearly and to think more logically about things. And then, if you get a rejection, it becomes a much bigger thing. So giving yourself that downtime. Sleep, making sure that you've got good sleep habits. Sleep deprivation is a form of torture, as anybody who has children will know. Focus time. So this is about trying to kind of batch things into different kind of activities. So it might be that you make all of your kind of phone calls in the morning, phoning recruiters, following up on things. It might be that, you do applications in the afternoon, whichever thing works best for you, depending on the energy that you've got at that time of day, try and batch them together because the brain is much better at doing one kind of a thing for a while and then going, okay, now let's move on to another kind of a thing, rather than kind of flitting between make a call, then do an application, and then do this and then do that. It has to keep kind of chopping and changing and kind of calibrating what it's doing. And then we all know from COVID times, that connecting with other people, find other people to talk to, whether they're people who are going through job search or not. Make sure that you have a chat to other people. So you basically plot where you're at now based on kind of a week or a month in terms of how much time you're spending on each of those things. And then you plot where you would like to get to. And you don't want to say, okay, I want to get to 10 on everything because that's not realistic. But are there things where maybe you could reduce the amount of time on one and increase it on another? So if you do that plotting, I'm going to move on just because we're running late on time. But then what you do after that is reflect on a small step that would help you to get to where you want to be, and try and make that step really small so that it doesn't feel really overwhelming. And there's some things you can do some research on tiny habits, but there's in terms of kind of trying to start a new habit and do things slightly differently, trying to break it down into the smallest thing possible, makes it much more manageable. So for me, it's that I used to have my phone by my bed at night. I used to then check what I was doing the following day on my phone. Then I'd fall down a rabbit hole and start scrolling and go to bed really late. Now I plug my phone in downstairs. My excuse was always my phone is my alarm clock, so I bought myself an alarm clock, and so now I have the alarm clock. The phone stays downstairs. But just little things like that will help you with things like for me the kind of the sleep side of things. And then the other thing that I asked myself after my husband passed away and everything felt quite overwhelming, was what's good enough for today? And so, if good enough for today, if yesterday was a tough day, maybe you didn't get the job that you really wanted, have some self-compassion and just go, what's good enough for today? And if good enough for today is that you're going to get dressed, have some food, and go for a walk and read a book or whatever it is, then that's okay. But just really recognizing that it's as much about caring for your mind and your well-being, as it is about taking the actions in terms of the job search. If your well-being is in a good place, if your mindset is in a good place, then you're going to come across much more confident when you're doing those applications, when you're going for those interviews, when you're having those networking conversations. So, in summary, think about the words that you're using because they will be feeding that loop in your head. Um, Remember that you have a choice over those. So, you have a choice over the feeling, how you want to feel about your job search and the thoughts that you need to have to achieve that and the actions that you need to take. And if you notice those negative thoughts creeping in, try and kind of catch them and reframe them. Remember that your brain will work against you in terms of those beliefs. And so unpick those assumptions that you're making. Is there another story here? And try and, take from it what the reality is, what the facts are. And then look after your mind and your well-being. So this is me. If you'd like to connect with me, you are more than welcome to. I've got lots of connections on LinkedIn. I share stuff about job search on LinkedIn. So if any of my connections are of any use to you, as I said earlier, it's easier to talk to somebody in your network through another connection, then please do have a look at my connections, get in touch with me, and I'm more than happy to connect you with other people. And do follow me or do get in touch if you'd like any other support at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have, as predicted, gone over ever so slightly, but we have got a few minutes. If anyone's got any burning questions, please do pop them in the Q&A, and we will try to address them. If they are, as I said, kind of quite personal or in depth, then it might be that we come back to you separately. Oh, everybody's jumping in. Bear with me. They're all saying thank you. We always get such a lovely response. And for the lady dealing with menopause brain fog, I am fully with you. Solidarity there. We don't have any magic cures for that, I'm afraid. Not even Debbie would be able to cope with that one, I don't think. So a couple of questions coming through are around skills gaps. And I think that we touched on this briefly, but it's Debbie, correct me if I'm kind of stepping on toes here, but we have a lot of people come to us saying that they don't have the skills. Maybe they feel as though their skills are outdated if they've had a career gap. Really try and think about the skills that you have been able to secure during that career gap. So very few of us have a career gap for no reason at all. Normally we are doing something, raising children, caring for elderly relatives, traveling the world if we're lucky. Think about the skills that you will have gained during that career gap and how they might be reworded or reframed to closer match those that are being looked for in the job description. Realize that you don't have to match every single one of the points on the job description being advertised to be able to make an application. As long as you're there or thereabouts, part of the appeal of bringing somebody on is so that the company can invest and build into that person. If you were already able to do everything, then there'd be a worry that you'd be out the door quite quickly. And also think about ways that you might be able to upskill that aren't through work necessarily. So volunteering is something that I know that Debbie feels very strongly about, and I agree. You can go and get so many skills and also support a good cause, and the benefit that that will have on your mindset and your kind of goodwill towards yourself is absolutely immeasurable. So maybe try and find a way of upskilling through volunteering or some sort of community project.
Yeah, and also kind of online learning. There's lots of cheap and free courses on things like Udemy, um, LinkedIn Learning, that kind of thing. And there are also quite a lot of AI courses that are available on kind of like Anthropic and that kind of thing. So there's lots of free courses that are available and joining webinars, going along to webinars, listening to podcasts, reading books, all of those things help to kind of increase your knowledge and skills around things. And if it's a particular sector, is there a kind of a sector online kind of magazine, blog, whatever in relation to that, so you can kind of keep up to date with what's going on in the sector?
Absolutely. We've suddenly had lots and lots of questions come through while we've been talking. And I don't think that we're going to have time to address any of them now. So as I said, we will try and come back if we've got your contact details through your application to be here this evening. We'll try and come back to you individually, or please do get in touch with Debbie directly, or you can get in touch with me either via Ruth, who will have been emailing you about this evening, or my email, which is just Joe at the beginning instead of Ruth. Thank you all so much for giving us your time this evening. And thank you for your kind words to Debbie. I don't know if you're reading any of the Q&A, Debbie, but everybody's very grateful for you sharing your story and opening up so wonderfully for us. Hopefully you've taken something away from this evening. Hopefully it will help your job search. The team at 10 to 2 are here to support you and answer any questions, and obviously guide you through your job search as much as we possibly can. We have a range of materials on our website that you're more than welcome to go and dig through. Or as I said, if you want to talk to any of us, please do get in touch with the team. But for now, I will leave you to your evening. Thank you again, Debbie, for your amazing insight. And hopefully we'll see everybody very soon.
Thank you. Bye.